My name's Francesca. I work as the chief curator at the Anchorage Museum. And I'm really delighted to be here in person with you all in Valdez on Sugpiaq land. So myself and my co-presenters are going to be talking about access, equity, and justice in the digital space. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about a virtual artist residency program that we've been running at the museum as sort of at the Anchorage Museum as a little preface to some of the ideas that I'm thinking about in terms of access and equity. And then my co-presenters are going to talk a little bit about their own work in this space. And I'd just like to read out their bios really quick because they're both amazing, accomplished individuals. And I know it's on the website, but I wanted to read them out for you all here. So we have with us Alexis Anoruk Sallee. She's an Inupiaq and Mexican artist currently based in Anchorage, Alaska. Her early love of sound, film, and music began while working with the local public radio station, KNBA. Sallee went on to receive a BS in recording arts at Full Sail University. She has worked in sound design for the film industry in Los Angeles and is the producer of Indigify, a national radio show dedicated to contemporary Indigenous music. Currently, Sallee is focused on writing and directing her own films. Her short film, Who We Are, won the grand prize in the 2019 National She Directed Filmmaker Contest, and she is a recent recipient of a 2022 Rasmussen Individual Artist Fellowship. Her current film work is focused on telling stories centering Alaska Native characters and queer identities, while also providing training for local Indigenous peoples in film production. And then we also have with us Alyssa Quintyne. Alyssa Quintyne is a Bajan American artist and community organizer based in Fairbanks. Her work celebrates the stories and identities of women of color and her cultural heritage, while also exploring themes of grief, death, healing, and self-care. She embraces art as a healthy way of transforming and transcending challenging situations and encouraging dialogue about important issues. She has shown her work in Fairbanks and Anchorage and served as co-curator of the past 2 editions of the Black Alaskan Art Matters exhibition at the Perseverance Theater in Juneau. So that's Alyssa and Alex, and you'll hear from them in a moment. I'm just going to jump right in here to the context of, oh, this is not working, the share screen. Oh, because the people on Zoom are seeing this full screen, but you guys aren't. Okay, this looks pretty weird, but can I make it? All right. Wow, so many layers to think about. All right. And is there a way to move this away? Okay, so you can see that. All right. So the COVID-19 pandemic, when the pandemic hit, as you all know, museums around the world closed. I read an UNESCO report that said 90% of museums globally shut their doors when the pandemic started. So the Anchorage Museum was, oh, Lord, no different. So that meant that we were pivoting to distribute a lot of the exhibitions that we already had in the pipeline online, and also to develop new exhibitions specifically for the online space. But we quickly sort of realized that this wasn't going to be enough to support our creative community, that we're losing all kinds of opportunities with the shuttering of museums and the canceling of various and assorted artistic projects. So actually, Nadia Jakinski at the Siri Foundation, who you all heard from on Monday, I believe, of this conference, she called me up and was like, is there something we can do to support artists during this time? And together we sort of came up with the idea of doing a virtual artist residency program. We made it up on the fly. The program now does have a structure, but it's always been pretty free form. And we've continued it on, even though the museum is now open and sort of semi back to normal. But I think that there were so many gains made through this program that I'd love to see initiatives like this continue on. And I just wanted to share some of my reflections and learnings about access and equity and what that means through like working on this specific program. So these are some of the artists that we've worked with. over the course. I'm just going to read out all their names so you can see their beautiful faces and hear their names. So clockwise, we have Hannah Agashuk Scholl, Indra Arriaga Delgado, Kimberly Fulton Orozco, Maritza Rice Aparicio Tovar, Kunak, Alyssa Quintyne. We have Jenny Irene Miller, Jen Angayak Wood and her grandmother, Teresa Wolstad on the left, Rachel Martin, Emma Hildebrand, Ethan Lawson. We have Alex up there in the top left, Castine down below her, Sequoia Hayes, Aaron Gothlemitz, Evalu Gingrich, Kuki Golga Oscar, Colleen Furman Thomas, Robin Lovelace, and Sarah Ayaki Whalen Lunn. So to date, we have worked with primarily female identified artists, and 100% of the artists in this program identify as BIPOC. So one thing that's really important about these residencies is they're personal and informal. Often in a museum setting, what you see is sort of like the final product, very divorced from like the personal story of the artist. And so this program really provides a way for people to share more about what makes them them and what informs their identity. So here we have a couple of images of Alex's family. There she is as a little girl on the left, and these are her great grandparents, Lena and John. Here are some photos from Alyssa. This is the coast of Barbados, and her Aunt Kim cooking black cake in the kitchen. And then here we have Robin Lovelace's family on the left in Atlin, British Columbia, and Rachel Martin's ancestors on the right. This is her father and grandmother and some of her father's siblings. And this photo was taken right before the children were sent to a boarding school at Eklutna. And I just wanted to show some of these pictures because I think this is a really beautiful opportunity to share more of personal history through a museum project. Robin Lovelace in particular told me that her favorite part of the residency was actually the opportunity to go through her own family photos and sort of reconnect with some of her family stories and dig through her personal archives. Thinking about what artists bring to their work as a whole person, I think is also really important. So many artists hold down interesting day jobs or come from backgrounds or have other experiences that really inform their artistic practice. And through this residency, we're able to share a lot more of that. So this is Maritza Rice Aparicio Tovar doing some fish and wildlife studies. She's worked for many years for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And so a lot of the work that she does is heavily based on Alaska flora and fauna. And so you can really see where her inspirations are coming from. Here's Castine in the classroom with some of her fellow teachers. She's a Lingit teacher, immersion preschool teacher, and a lot of her work deals with cultural revitalization and teaching and youth. And here's Sequoia Hayes. She's a licensed social worker and therapist. And here she is in a kitchen in South Africa in a women's shelter. And a lot of her work deals with healing and mental health and wellness. So a huge part of these residencies is the importance of skill sharing. We were a little more loosey-goosey at the beginning, but now the one requirement of the residency is that folks share at the end of their residency in an hour-long live stream that audience can interact with. We purchase these tabletop tripods for each artist, and they share an element of their practice in the studio in a very informal way. So here you have Kunak showing how to crimp kamak soles, Jen showing some of her carving. Here's something that you really can't show in a museum setting. This is Robin Lovelace showing some of the casting process for her stainless steel predator cannibal mask that you see on the right. This one I thought was so cool. This is Alex showing some of the audio engineering that goes into her films. And I mean, I think this is an arena where actually many people do not know much of the artistry that goes into this. And it was fascinating. She had her whole timeline and was showing us how she sort of builds a soundscape in a film. Here's Ellie Schmidt doing some live painting. This is just showing sort of the different types of things artists developed during their residencies to share. This is Jenny Irene Miller showing a cyanotype process. She was making cyanotypes on paper and fabric for a project she was working on. Let's see, is it going to let me advance? So this is a little time lapse of Maritza's work. She works digitally in illustration, and so she made a bunch of little videos to sort of show the process. I'm just going to play this quickly.
I normally start resin pencil to outline the basic shapes that I'm going to be working with, and with the perspective. And this is all self-taught, so really just learning as I go. And after I have satisfying kind of pencil outline, I come in with the paintbrushes. And this is where I add a bit more depth and shadow, highlights. From there, I allow kind of my intuition to guide me with the rest. And if there's a lot of room for moving forward, taking steps back, which I really, really appreciate. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this today, and more soon.
So I think, you know, a big part of this program is also sort of demystifying the artistic process, showing that not everybody who becomes an artist comes from, you know, a formal training, and that these are skills that you can learn and have access to, you know, with relative ease. Really emphasizing the value of process over product. I think this is a big one for museum workers. We tend to get caught up on exhibitions and final product outcomes, but really thinking about everything that leads up to that is having so much value in this process. So sharing things like artist studios. This is Jen and Gayak Wood's carving studio, and this is a little graphic she made of some of her carving tools so she could explain the use of each of them. These are images from Kim Fulton Orozco's studio. So on the left, you see the process of her research and titling for artworks. And then on the right, stack of inspiring reading she keeps with her in the studio. On the right, you see Ellie Schmidt on her sailboat that she has been working on for years. And this is sort of her moving studio / laboratory, and what allows her to do a lot of her marine-based research that allows her to create images like the image of the seal that you see on the left. And also thinking about materials and the process for gathering and processing materials. Here you see Colleen Furman Thomas's quills on the left that she's gathered, and on the right, finished work incorporating those quills called Little Snares. And Hannah Scholl in the studio removing fish skin for tanning process. Another piece of this is relationship building. I think this is probably the most important part of it, and something that was echoed in the previous presentation. I think this is paramount to any work we're doing towards equity in the museum field right now. And this program really allows us to connect meaningfully with emerging and mid-career artists in a variety of different locations, both within and outside of Alaska. And it establishes a relationship that then becomes a two-way street, and artists can, you know, call on us for needs that they may have. So here's Kunak in the collection with Monica looking at seal oil lamps. And here is Kuki Golga Oscar showing how to do some beadwork in the galleries at the museum. And what you can't see is behind him is this beautiful installation of some of his headdresses and parka. So we had an exhibition of his work This residency has led to artworks being collected for the collection. It's led to exhibitions, it's led to collections visits, it's led to all different other kinds of engagement and interaction with artists, which I think is really lovely. And reducing barriers to access. A big thing I think about with this is geography. There are a lot of Alaska Native artists who perhaps live outside of Alaska now, or maybe never really lived in Alaska. And Rachel Martin is one such artist that we worked with. She lives in New York, and the residency really provided her an opportunity to build some relationships back home with artists in Southeast. This is a meditation sketchbook page from Sequoia Hayes. Some artists may have been denied access to training or education through structural racism, and this is the case with Sequoia's practice. And I think for her, it's been a sort of long journey to re-identify as an artist, and sort of a big step to take. And so what I like about this opportunity is that the hurdle is much lower. You don't have to have experience like framing or printing or doing anything fancy with your work. You just have to be able to take pictures of it and share it. So it's an important step for folks who are maybe coming back into their identity as artists. And then the website, this is just a little screenshot of the Anchorage Museum website showing the artists that we've worked with. Each name goes to a link where you can read an article that's been written about their practice. You can watch their live stream and read their bio. And for artists who don't have as much of an internet presence or their own website, this real estate on the Anchorage Museum website, I think, is really important for seeking funding opportunities and getting their work out there. Here's Kunak giving a little demo on how to live stream and digitally share your work. She's like an absolute pro at this. And so a big sort of goal of the program was to really put these tools in more hands. And so she gives a really lovely rundown of how to do this and make it more accessible. And I think I've been pleased to see that a number of artists who have participated in the program have gone on to really share quite a bit of their work online afterwards. And this is one of my favorite images. This was one of our recent artists, Indra Arriaga Delgado, is from Mexico. And here is her live stream being projected on the wall of her family's home in Mexico. And I think this is a really sort of obvious benefit of the digital realm, and something that we all have gotten used to, and this conference is taking advantage of right now, but being able to share across distance the work that we're all doing with folks off the road system in Alaska and beyond. And so I just wanted to share a couple little comments. I think a big part of this program is also the ability for the audience to have more direct access to the artists. Anyone can chime in during the live stream and ask questions. So things range from, happy little comments about, seeing people's face and hearing their voice and sharing knowledge, to the ability to ask questions, really big questions about sort of identity, process, activism, to really specific questions about sort of materials, process, and showing that people are actually really hungry to learn the skills that these artists have and these demonstrations that they offer online. So I'm going to stop there because I want you all to be able to hear from Alex and Alyssa. But if you have any questions, we'll have time for discussion at the close of their presentations. So let me figure out how to navigate over to Alex's. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, that worked? Oh, I was seeing okay, hang on. It was showing me the presenter view. Okay, I guess that's fine. Alex, can you hear?
I can hear you, but can you share it on the Zoom as well?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I've never done something so multi-layered here. See. Zoom. Share screen.
Probably will need to share the audio as well.
Yeah, hang on a second. Oh. All right. Yeah, but this is, okay, hang on, Alex, because when I went to share screen or to the, it only was doing presenter view. So slideshow is what we want. It's still giving me the presenter view, but it's not on mine, which I think is what they're seeing on Zoom. Alex,
That might be okay.
is
Yeah.
it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Can you hear
Sorry.
me okay?
My head is in like 3 different places right now. Yes, we can hear you. So
Well, thank you so much, Fran, for running this. I'm here in Valdez, but I have like a cough that I've just had for 3 weeks. So if I mute myself to cough, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm Alex. I was born and raised in Anchorage, and really, yeah, like in my bio, I started my journey in film now, but in radio. And at the time, I kind of just started, interning at the KMBA in Anchorage, and was a little bit more introverted in high school, and was really interested in getting into audio. And at the time, the host of one of our national radio programs was letting me edit her interviews, and that was like a really great way to kind of start cutting my teeth and like how storytelling comes along and how to put interviews together and how to edit interviews. And it really interested me in getting into sound for movies. So then I went across the country to Florida and got my degree in recording arts. And then after I graduated with my degree in recording arts, I moved to LA and started working in Hollywood, essentially, and really got to work with some amazing directors and actors. But after working in the industry for so long, it started to feel like, well, man, like who's gonna, like, why aren't there people telling like Alaska Native stories like on the big screen and like high quality content? And having no background in film, like I just started doing it myself, and kind of figuring out how films come together and how editing works. And having a background in audio really helped a lot, just because it started to get my mind together of like how a story comes together, and just adding that visual component onto it. And you can go to the next slide, Fran. I'm not seeing the layering part. That's the tough part. So family's a big part for me. On my dad's side, I'm a Nukbiak, and my family comes from Shishmaref and Nome. And on my mother's side, I'm from Tepic Nayarit, Mexico. And I grew up mostly in Alaska, and heard stories of my grandparents and great grandparents, and the only English that they knew is from commercials, but only spoke Inupiaq fluently. And so I think a lot about them when I'm thinking about a project. And so much of our history is people coming into our communities and extracting stories, extracting information, and putting their own bias on it. And so I'm constantly thinking about, how do I not do that to other communities that aren't my own? And how do I make sure to collaborate with them and make them part of it? Especially when we talk about narrative sovereignty, having them be a part of that storytelling, which is so ingrained in our people, is so important. So I'm constantly thinking about my family. And you can go to the next one. I can't really see where you are.
Okay.
So
we see the photo of your grandma looking really cool in front of the gnome nugget.
Yeah, so that's grandma, old photo of her in Nome. She grew up in Nome. Always talks about how she waitressed and, would make like 10 cents an hour. And then in the bottom one is her on our fishing boat that we've had for 50 something years, constantly breaking down. But my grandma's like, she's someone that's always been a constant in my whole life. My native name, Anoruk, comes from her best friend. And it's interesting because we talk about our namesakes and like how we have relationship to them. And I really feel like we've always been best friends. We would always go camping, just me and her when I was a kid. And she would, drive me. And she said I would talk from Anchorage to Homer, which is 4 hours. And so now as an adult, and she's really small and can't really drive. So it's really interesting, that cycle of life where like this weekend is actually, we're celebrating her birthday and I'm going to be taking her down. And she's just a big constant in my life and really informs the work that I do. You can go to the next slide. So, having a background in audio, I always thought about like, well, why am I interested in audio? What is it about it? And years later, I started to think about like, our people, Indigenous people and our storytelling and our music and songs and dances, that is storytelling. How we imitate the seals or the walruses or the birds in our songs and paint these pictures in our dances of our landscapes. That is so part of sound design and how we like bring people to our lands and hear the different animals that are on our lands. And, as sound design developed, it started a lot with voice. If you hear like Ben Burtt, who's a major sound designer on like Star Wars, they use a lot of different voice things and manipulate it and pitch it and reverse it and modulate it. But really, I think about how some of our traditional music is some of the first forms of sound design, and our music is so important and our drums are so important. And it's something that I embrace in every project I've ever done. I do original scores on every project. So all the video projects I'm showing you today, it's all original music, or I've had a traditional drummer come in and record drums and have a composer write music over it and work with them as well, so that they're all part of the process together. But when you think about sound design, we're really trying to bring someone into that space, into that land. And you can go to the next slide. And this is the first one for Who We Are, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so Who We Are was my first big project. And it was filmed in my aunt's fish camp in Cape Nome, which is still standing even after the typhoon. And, a lot of our family fish camps are now destroyed because of the storm that recently happened. And I'm really grateful to be a filmmaker that has filmed a lot of that, because now we have memory of all our old fish camps and our drying racks that are now gone. And I was able to document a lot of that stuff and document our family in our fish camps. That's something I'll be able to share with my family later, which is, it's gone physically, but it's something I'll be able to show later by documenting that. And Who We Are was a piece that I wrote talking about the climate change that's happening and all the stuff that we're dealing with as Indigenous people that is happening to our lands, and the effects of colonization and not understanding our identity sometimes, and not feeling like you're fully native, because you grew up in an urban community. But the piece really talks about, well, we're really strong people, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of work you do, you can find that grounding in the work that you do. So through this piece, I was showing connection through the land and the artist's painting. So you'll see the grass of the tundra with the greens of the painting, or the blues in the painting with the ocean water. So you can go to the next slide. That one's a behind the scenes in Cape Nome. My little cousin is the one with the doing the scene takes. And then top right is us in Shishmaref, because we filmed a lot of stuff in Shishmaref as well, and we were with a bunch of youth there. The middle top one is actually what it looked inside when we were filming in my aunt's fish camp in Cape Nome. And then on the left is kind of like my family and Tristan, who is the main actress in this, me and my DP, Tomas. And my family was a really big part in helping us put this together. Like, we didn't have electricity, so we had to get a generator. There's no cell phone service. So it was like three of us trying to put together this whole film. So, and the next slide, you can go ahead and play that. This is the 2-minute version, the shorter version.
I can stand on the shoreline and think of a time when our villages weren't disappearing, when the land wasn't being taken by the sea. I stand here and I feel how this land runs through me, back to centuries ago. It's the way the ocean waves break alongside our boats. This water that feeds our resources and in turn feeds us. I stand here, bound to a long line of women who showed us how to be tough. Do it our way and not fall into place. I'm lost, but within my body, I know I carry rich foundation. Rooted in this land that keeps our people thriving, growing from the seeds laid by our ancestors, carving my way back. My existence isn't from books, but from songs and stories of my people, embodying traditions preserving our memory. We stand here, born to face harsh realities. We stand here, fighting to make a difference. We stand here as the real people of the North. Inuit, we are the Inuit.
So unfortunately, we couldn't see it here on Zoom, but that was a piece that the first piece I wrote and directed like fully as a scripted piece. And yeah, there was a lot of challenges, but ended up working out really great. It was funny because me and Tristan had talked about it for a while and didn't actually meet until she showed up in Nome with the painting, and it just kind of all worked out in the end. You can go to the next slide.
It's Dear Kin.
Yeah, Dear Kin. So Dear Kin is a project we did last year and premiered it at the Anchorage Museum. And, you know, as a queer Indigenous person that grew up in Alaska, it's always been like something I felt was missing was that representation and seeing Indigenous queer people. I think that just like the stereotypes of being Native, there's a lot of stereotypes of being gay, and I really wanted to do something that highlighted our people in a positive way, and let people know that you can have families, you can live a happy life. So we filmed about 8 different people all over Alaska. And Juneau, Haines, Anchorage, and basically with Dear Kin, they're writing a letter to their future kin, and we let people kind of take and say what they wanted to tell the future kind of ancestors that come along. And so when we premiered this, people were texting me after saying that there was a lot of crying because they're all really emotional. They're really heartfelt videos. Today I'm only going to show one, but this one is Lane, and they reside in Juneau. and a lot of the people featured are artists, so we were able to share their letters through seeing their art as well, and showing that connection to identity. So yeah, you can go to the next slide and play that one of Lane as well.
Okay, we're gonna try something to see if we can get it to go on Zoom.
Does everyone on Zoom see the screen?
Can you see that now, Alex?
I can just see the PowerPoint, the regular PowerPoint, the presenter's view.
Okay, so the swap display didn't work.
No, it
Has
doesn't.
anyone had this issue before? So the people on Zoom aren't seeing
Any of the
this. They're
films.
seeing the presenter screen, but they're not seeing the
I
film.
cannot see the film.
Okay.
And we thought the swap display would.
Mhm.
Oh, I just saw something there.
So
Okay.
can you just leave it in this screen as opposed to going to full screen? And just switching
Ye-
between it?
Let's see.
The other option is to get a second laptop and somebody else will.
Well, whatever you just did when you
Mhm.
switched over, that worked.
Yeah, something came up.
Okay, but right, what are you seeing right
Are
now?
you seeing a video?
I am seeing a black screen. I assume that's a video.
So if you
Okay,
stop
let's
sharing
wait.
and then share again.
No? Is that working?
Can you see that?
We can see that.
All right.
I can see that.
My name is Nishianaguye, or Beach Walking Raven, and I am hunted for the raven moiety of the Teton plant from Rainbow, Alaska, and a child of the Kwakwanton. I am of two spirits and consider myself to be non-binary. On my mother's side, we are from Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. Puxia Batu is my Tiwa name. When I was a kid, I played outside, played in creeks, picked berries, fished in Juneau as well as in the high desert of New Mexico. Shellcat weaving on the hand is a way for me to assert my identity within my Indigenous worldview. It was said by the last master teacher, Jenny Fanat, that funny night to weave. By funny, she meant those of us who embody aspects, I believe, that are both masculine and feminine energies. It is said that the work of the loom is a veil to the spiritual realm. Every time I approach my loom, I try to do so with the intent of peace, ease, and love, although it's difficult at times. By weaving, I'm able to connect with these ancestral forces, the present, as well as those that will come after me. I am from a family that loves me dearly, and though we've had our struggles, they have always supported me. As early as I can remember, I was drawn to traditionally girls' activities such as dress-up and playing with dolls with my friends. My parents never helped me through training. I was helping me Barbie dolls, cars, clothes, and they would sing songs for me to appeal to my feminine side of me too well. If anyone Hey, Fran, you're muted. We can't hear anything.
Okay. I'm back. Okay.
Oh,
Alex?
okay. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think we cut out at the end there.
Oh, Lord.
But Yeah, so Dear Kin was a piece that I really wanted to just showcase various people in our communities and the work they do, and showing really positive examples of Indigenous queer people. A lot of the work I do, and I've talked to other friends about similar work, but to us, it's a lot about like storytelling that is healing. We call it like visual medicine. Doing something that's really giving back and empowering our people. You can go to the next slide. I recently worked with the Heritage Center on a couple short films. Sorry, apologies. And one of them was this first one called Building Future Leaders. And I don't know if you've spent much time at the Heritage Center, you might recognize the two people in this video. But it's about Tatiana is kind of the main person, and she's the one in the voiceover, and talking about kind of growing up in the Heritage Center and what it's done for her and what it's going to do for her future generations and her family. So this was a really cool one. We got to film it in the Yupik traditional house at the Heritage Center, and you can go ahead and play that one.
Okay.
We're gonna try something like that. Go to preferences,
Okay.
go to slideshows or a slideshow, but it looks like this.
Yes.
And then click off always, start presentation view with 2 displays.
Okay.
And now close that.
Okay.
And now go into full, like do a presentation mode,
Slideshow.
slideshow. Oh,
Okay. Let's see.
can you guys still see that?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Yay.
Okay,
All
now
right.
try that.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We just can't really hear the audio is the only thing.
This is me, this is who I am. I am Tatiana Chiknora. I am Dina Plinkett and Degaton. And I was born and raised in Anchorage. I started coming to the Alaska Native Heritage Center as a baby. My mom worked here. In a way, I was raised here, surrounded by culture bearers. This is where I started to dance and learn about other cultures besides my own. Dance has taught me to have respect for all cultures and to create a positive space to share positive energy when I dance for myself and others. Now I have my own little family. These dances and values I have learned here, I am passing down to my son. He has picked up the drum and felt the heartbeat it carries. His feet have understood the movements of our dances. And I know one day he will be a culture bearer of his people. One day he will be a future leader.
Yeah, so that was Building Future Leaders. That was a really, really fun one. Working with Sage, who's a little boy, it was so hard. We just had to like film whatever we could with him, just because he was like running around all over the place. So we got a lot of his like little bare feet and stuff like that. The next one, you can go to the next one, Fran. This one was really amazing story. The Heritage Center works with a group called the Alaska Art Alliance, and they have a studio on 4th Avenue in downtown Anchorage. And it's ran by Leon, he's kind of the main person in this, and he did the voiceover. But his story, you know, he went to prison for, I think it was 14 years, for murder. And you know, he was an accomplice in a murder. And really, like, I just sat down and talked about how that whole experience changed his life, and wrote a voiceover based on him telling me his story and how he changed his life and created this space for men, Alaska Native men, to come and practice their carving and sell their carvings in a sober environment. And he kind of referred to it as a men's house, where you can come and find support and find a community. And he's really done a lot for the men in our community, and has just really done some positive work. And his wife now runs a shop 2 doors down, called Epiphany, and it's similar, but it's for women, where they do classes and you can learn to bead and do all kinds of stuff like that. But they have a really amazing story, and it was great to spend time with all these carvers, and just, you know, get to talk to them and see all the amazing skillful art that they do. But yeah, you can go ahead and play that one.
What does it look like to heal? Years after being born, to be shaved down to your root and find your way again. To be sitting in a cell, judged and lost, praying to ancestors for strength. Some of us being reborn with no guides or no direction in where to begin. My healing journey started many years ago, and I continue on this path. It started as an idea, stemming from my time in prison, and has now become a place of self-determination. This brotherhood we created keeps us accountable. These carvings hold spirit, and with each creation, a person behind it. A person that carries thousands of years of passed down knowledge. A person who has become a master of their art. We support ourselves and our families with this craft, making a living while sharing the story. People think of our ancestors as being gone. We think of them as always being with us. This work that we do is in honor of our ancestors, celebrating our culture and carrying on tradition.
So yeah, that piece was on the Alaska Art Alliance. And if you're ever in Anchorage, go to 4th Avenue and it'll say Arctic Treasures, and you can go in there and support them and buy, you know, authentic Alaska Native ivory. And then the last project I have to share today is last year I got reached out by MTV Entertainment to do their Native Heritage Month spot, which was really amazing. I was like, how do you guys even know who I am? But it was really exciting because we put together an all Indigenous cast and crew. I wanted to have everyone, you know, be Alaska Native in front and behind the camera. And then at that same time, I've been working with Native Movement, doing the first Alaska Native Filmmakers Intensive to train more Alaska Native filmmakers and get them skills and opportunity to learn about filmmaking and all the aspects that go into it. So we filmed this in Fairbanks while I was there on the retreat with Native Movement, and put together like this amazing crew of all Femi identifying people and with their traditional chin tattoos. And my producer, Princess, who I'm sure many of you know, her niece was about to have her coming of age ceremony, and, you know, knowing her mom and talking to the family about it, they let us film the actual ceremony and getting the tattoo. And Kunak, who also lives in Fairbanks, did the tattoo. And we were really trying to be as mindful as possible and not make it so much of like scene to scene to scene. Like, we just wanted to film the process, and the family was in the room the whole time, just off screen. And we wanted to make sure that the ceremony was very much her ceremony as much as possible, while we were able to capture these different parts of the process. So the next slide is some behind the scenes photos of the crew, casting crew, and kind of like how it looked. We were filming at UAF's campus, this last shot. And so we went to Home Depot and got like these huge reflective bounces that we put up, and kind of got like this ending power shot. But if you go to the next slide, you can go ahead and play that.
Long before these buildings, long before others defined our beauty, our ancestors carried markings of pride. When outsiders came, my community stopped doing them. My grandmother was the first Gwich'in woman to bring them back. Today, I'm surrounded by strong matriarchs who carry these markings. For me, this is part of my coming of age ceremony. My markings remind me of my responsibility to my family and to my culture. It is a way to let people know we are here. It is a way to show our strength. I'm Jeanette, home often and Gwich'in. I wear my markings with pride. Today and every day, we celebrate the first people of the land.
So that was a really awesome project to do. It aired on, I didn't know MTV Entertainment owns like 9 channels globally. So like VH1, Country Music Television, Logo, Comedy Central. So it was like really amazing to like hear people being like, oh my God, I saw your piece on TV. They're gonna run this again for Indigenous Peoples Day next month. So that's exciting. And then my last slide is just thank you. And I do want to say, in each of these, you know, regardless of the mediums you work in, for me and my approach as a filmmaker, it's really important to always collaborate with the people you're putting in front of the camera or telling stories about, because they should have as much ownership as you do, because it is their story. So every person that is in front of the camera is very much a part of every aspect, before we start it, during, and then after, and always making sure that they feel really good about what we're sharing. So I know I've taken up quite a bit of time, and I want to pass it off to Alyssa, but I want to say Koyinak Buck and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Alex. let's see here. Alyssa, do you want to run it from your computer? Or would you like me to run it here?
Yeah, let me try and see if that is easier.
Did you say you're gonna try?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so I'll stop share. Okay. Go ahead. Let me see if I need to maybe make you a host or something.
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay, and then we will just.
Okay. I don't know.
All right, can people see?
Yep.
Can people in person see?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, great. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Quintyne again. I'm going to run you through pretty much the power of doing whatever you want. This is my section here. Again, a little bit about myself. Again, I'm a community organizer and a creative on Chinadine, Loretanana lands in Tanan, commonly known as Fairbanks, Alaska, in the interior. I have been in Fairbanks since I was 6. We got stationed there in early 2000, like 2001. And I've been there ever since. I would be there in Valdez with you, but yeah, planes apparently don't like rain. So they're like, yeah, you're staying here in Anchorage. So maybe another time I'll get to see folks in person. But essentially, my family all comes from Barbados in the West Indies, otherwise known as Ichiruganum. I am a first-generation American, so I was the first person in my family born outside of the island. And so on the left, that's a picture of my family there on my mother's side, and then a baby picture. It's pretty cute. So yeah, that's where I come from. And this slide here is just a compilation of pictures that I have, from work and from different things I've done in the community. As I said, I'm a community organizer. That's what I do for a living. I've been doing that for almost 13, 14 years. I mostly work on community advocacy, but have done, I do a lot of climate action and climate crisis work. I do a lot of mutual aid and community advocacy and civil governance and international research. So it really depends on what's going on and what my community needs. But I've always tried to sneak art in there, and there's just all different types of pictures from my own personal shows to collaborations that I've done with other artists and conferences I've went to and shows that I've curated and collaborated and created for other artists, to my work being used in national uprisings. So it's pretty cool. It's been a very busy, I don't know how to do the math, but since 2014 to now, so a really long time doing what I do. As I've been, in the game for a while, I've sort of developed how I try to work in my community and what really works best and what I've seen have the really best impact for just doing anything artistic and with other people. The first thing is definitely for us, by us. I think a lot of folks, they see other communities, regardless of what they are. They want to help, they want to provide opportunities, but they kind of come at it in a way of let me save you, let me do it for you. I know it's best. And that's not really the case. Artists and communities, we kind of know already what we need to do. It's just that we need the avenue and the space to do it and the resources to do it. So anything that I'm doing, whether it's a rally or, a First Friday, I make sure that if I'm doing it with a community, it's with that community all together. They're the ones that are making the decisions. It's their art on the walls. It's their, it's their bank accounts that the money's going into, because that's really what, equity is about. It's us having the avenue, the resources, and the space to do what we need to do. The second is partnership over profit. And I think that's really been illuminated, especially with Alex's things of, when you start working from an aspect of developing people rather than developing your wallet, you really see the beauty and the change that can come from the art projects or the collaborations that you want to create. So really valuing that and centering that as this is what I'm doing it for, rather than I'm going to make money off of this. I've just seen the most amount of impact and beauty come out of those relationships. Definitely uplift your people first. Think globally, but act locally. Not a lot of people can leave, get the resources that they need, get educated, come back. Some of us are just here and we kind of have to make do with what we have. So if there's ever an opportunity to share resources, if there's ever an opportunity to create something together, do it with the people that you're around. Remember where you come from. Fourth is build in public. I really value transparency. I value being able to see people grow, their successes, their mistakes. All of that, I think, makes the journey worth it. And being able to have that legacy where people can see, come back to, learn from, and take that with them, I think is very valuable. Peep the details. There's a reason why we identify the way that we do. There's a reason why we tell people that. There's a reason why we make space to explain all of these things. It has an impact. So, making sure that we're honoring that, making sure that we're putting that right front and center is always something that's going to be important, which of course means that representation matters. Growing up as a Bayesian American in Fairbanks, Alaska, meant that there was nobody else that looked like me, dressed like me, talked like me, thought like me. And it was very difficult growing up. So I kind of had to carve a space in my own community for me to exist. And that's not fun, but I think being able to create the space that's needed for other people where they can see themselves, hear themselves, be themselves. Oh my gosh, life-saving, important, immaculate stuff. So that's my guiding principles as I go, through my artistic life and such. Being in the game also comes with its barriers. I mean, for one thing, it's expensive. If you're a virtual artist or a visual artist in any capacity, you've got to buy equipment, materials, all sorts of stuff to be able to exhibit your work and share it with your community. And yeah, that's a lot of money. The pandemic really exacerbated that. I mean, with delays and all sorts of shipping issues. But it also, as Fran had talked about, it closed a lot of different, venues and areas where artists could be able to exhibit their work, and upcoming opportunities for us to be able to take that next step in our career. That also exacerbated a lot of the, structural detriments and discrimination that we already have in professional art spaces. Pandemic just made it worse. So that really limited what, new and emerging artists can do. On that, because the pandemic presented such an unprecedented and scary time, and because a lot of diversity and inclusion and equity work that a lot of professional art spaces and folks are doing, when the pandemic happened, they resorted right back to old ways. They were like, the heck with this new emerging artist. We're going to go right back to, our more premiered, our more, big name artists, to get that money, get them connections, get them networks going, to keep the lights on, the doors open, which understandable, but it meant that, everybody else was just kind of excluded from the process. And was even more of an impact in places like Fairbanks, where there's maybe 5 areas where we can show our work, and we don't really have the resources and equipment to be able to perform and exhibit and do collaborative shows. So it was really a difficult time for folks to be able to share their work. Local venues, and I know this is not just an issue in Fairbanks, but statewide, a lot of local venues don't have the equipment or knowledge to help artists show their work. I cannot tell you how many times a coffee shop owner has said, "Can we hang your art with fishing line?" No, you may not, because they just really don't know. And they don't really have the incentive to know and learn more of how do we actually, exhibit a person that's got to frame their work, or someone that has sculptures, or someone that does video. There's not really an incentive for, either, for folks to learn that and be able to provide that opportunity. And that is because they value profit. They don't value our work. They know that we bring an audience. They know that we bring money, and that's all they're interested in. So, with all of that said, in my professional opinion, that's hella whack. I was like, I'm done with that. I'm tired of it. There's got to be something else that I can do to continue to share my work and create space for other creatives in my community. I mean, honestly, it's really just, I had this moment of, thinking about what are some things that I've done that I've seen work in the interior that we can really move in this next direction and be able to decentralize power back into our hands and establish the opportunities that we're looking for. And that's a really cute picture of, it's like, I'm literally caught in between people. You can't see me, I'm really short. That was a collaborative art show that I was a part of, actually down in Anchorage at the Artist Block. So those are some other artsy friends. So one of them was actually in that video too, that Alex showed. So pretty cool, small world. Let me talk about virtual art shows and how we as artists, as our own creatives, can you really just create what we need to have happen. I don't have any pictures of it, but sort of throughout my process of just existing, sometimes on DeviantArt, kind of aging myself, people remember DeviantArt and still on it. I would just do these things where I would just make a whole bunch of art and I just throw it up on the website, and I called them art bombs back then. This was like mid 2000s. And a lot of the people who were on my DeviantArt were my friends and other rad folks online. And it was really cool. We just create this little group chat thing. We video each other and we'd share our work and we give each other feedback. We'd share with other people. We get other people on the chat. And it was just a really cool opportunity to be like, I've just made a whole bunch of stuff. I don't really know what to do with it, but I want to share it with folks. And being able to create that space was really, really great. And as DeviantArt sort of like filtered through, the internet realm, and there's other platforms, Instagram and Tumblr and Facebook, I started moving to those platforms, kind of doing the same thing. And so I knew for me that it was a really good way to generate community and get a lot of important feedback and make a lot of different connections, within the community of other artists that, want to do cool things. And that's how I developed a really strong network, is, by just being friendly on the internet. When the pandemic hit and First Fridays were definitely not a thing, exhibitions were definitely not a thing, I knew that those opportunities in those spaces were the way to go. And so in 2021, I officially posted 2 virtual art shows, Pinnacles of Self-Care and FAFO, and both of them on my website. And that was an opportunity for me, instead of just, putting all of these pictures on a group chat, for me to actually theme out the pieces. And I made a little playlist for one of them. Just get really, interactive and really cool with it. And it was amazing the kind of impact that it had. Pinnacles of Self-Care was the first one that I posted on my website, and it was the first time that my family back in Barbados actually like saw my work, like all themed out. Like, yes, of course, they would see sketches and me off in a corner doing something, but it was the first time that they had actually seen a full body of work. And people who, of course, were stuck in their homes, people in the lower 48 that I knew, all the way in New York, and like somebody, in Great Britain, and all of these different people were able to see my work. And it was really beautiful to be able to make all these connections with people that I didn't even know, which also led to a really awesome opportunity that Fran's a part of, the Artist in Residence that happened in 2021. It was the first time that I was published ever, which is, kind of sad, because I've been doing things in my community for like over a decade. And I mean, but it happens in time. But it was a really cool opportunity for me to share, exactly like who I am, where I come from, what that means to me and my work, and for people to learn about my weird cathartic interests and stuff like that. That residence really provided me an opportunity to get more equipment. Like I have some pictures over here on the left, like I was able to get a light board and some video equipment and started dabbling in video and just being able to expand and do more with my art where otherwise, because again, things expensive, I wasn't able to do before. So it was a really beautiful opportunity to have, and I'm really grateful for it. And, you know, even with it continuing now, I'm just getting to know and meeting all sorts of rad folks across the state I didn't even know existed. So it definitely needs to continue. You know, it went from me being a rinky-dink little artist on DeviantArt to like having international, you know, pull of like, I know someone in India. I have never been to India, but now I have, you know, people in India that are like, yeah, we love your work. We want to get to know you. So this has immense benefit. And, you know, again, being able to build community in places that you've never even been, to me, really shows the value of being in a more digital equitable space. The benefits of this, of course, like we talked about with all the equipment and materials, guess what? You ain't gotta do none of that. It's cheap. You need a scanner or a phone camera, some internet access, and a website, and you're pretty much good. Second, creatives, we get to make our own opportunities. We don't have to wait for schedules or any sort of deadlines besides our own. So, you know, again, the outreach is really in our hands. With that, we're able to expand our audience and make our work more accessible. You know, traditional brick and mortar are only as accessible as the building itself. So, and if people can make it out and if they can afford to be in that space, because a lot of spaces aren't free. So it really, you know, cuts through all of that. And again, anybody with internet access, they can view your work. It also creates a lot of opportunities for folks to be able to collaborate with each other beyond mediums and beyond platforms, where in traditional art spaces, you're kind of limited to what you can do. And depending on the website that you have, it can really change the sort of flexibility and the interaction that you have. So artists can really create and build the way, you know, the theme that they really want to, you know, present out to the world. And that's really cool. Through that and learning, you definitely improve your social media skills, your graphic design skills, all different things that are very valuable for creatives to have, but can be very exclusive because, hey, you got to go to a class for that. You got to have equipment for that. You have to have somebody to sit down with you and show you how to do that. When you're kind of learning through it and doing it yourself, oh, you get really good at making flyers real quick. So it's a really good way to get those skills and hone them in. And the best part about this is that we directly profit. There's no one making a commission off of me. There's no contract I got to sign. If someone has a conflict or doesn't like my work, you know what they can do? Click that X button on the browser, problem solved. So it really, again, decentralizes and puts the power and the ability back into the creative's hands. And I just want to read you this, you know, this slide here, because, you know, I know the room that I'm talking to, this isn't bashing, you know, museums or gallery houses or traditional art spaces. You know, this is really about recognizing, you know, the barriers that we experience as creatives, and especially as a part of marginalized communities, and kind of as an invitation of coming to this journey, this next step in the journey with us. You know, virtual art shows provide creatives the opportunity to decentralize power back into our hands. And I really want you to take that piece, because everything is, I have to go to you, I have to apply, I have to pay. But no, you got to come to me. And that allows me to be able to ground my voice and my intention in the way that I need to for my work. I get to establish my independence. I get to establish my presence. And that really allows the community to see exactly me for who I am. Whereas in sometimes traditional art spaces, they can't always do that. And sometimes they won't, depending on who you are. So I really just want this slide to really sink in. If there's anything you take away from it, it's this. That leads me to the second project that I want to take that I have been a part of for the past couple of years, and that's BAM, or Black Alaskan Art Matters. So in 2020, after the George Floyd uprisings, many different organizations and leaders, they had their statements. You know, it was a really unprecedented time where we literally watched a murder happen in front of our own eyes. And Perseverance Theater, reached out to me and a couple other folks, Mahogany Magnetic and Amable Rosa, both in Anchorage, and said, we want to do something more. We don't want to do a statement. We don't want to, do something fluffy. We want to really be able to build a relationship with Black artists and build them up. So we came up with an initiative called Black Alaskan Art Matters. And this is essentially our first statement here of why we wanted to do this. It was a time where we really recognized that we were all experiencing the same things. Like, I was experiencing discrimination in my communities. There was places where I couldn't show my work. I was always getting critiqued to, how my art hurt white people's feelings. And I'm like, well, that's great, but that's not really what it's about. We were always just there's something in our way. And we recognize, hey, if this is happening to me, this has got to be happening to a lot of people. And so we knew that, again, for us, by us, we can create the space that we need where Black creatives can do exactly what they need to do. They can get the resources that they need. They can get the education, the space, the highlights, everything. And we can also be able to start archiving our work, because something that was really sad as we were working on this project was that there weren't really a lot of historical facts around Black artists in Alaska. Like, we don't know the first watercolor artist, the first poet, the first person to create a public mural in Alaska. And so we knew that this was important, and we sought out to figure out how we can connect other Black creatives in the state. So our goals with that were providing a space for Black creatives to exist. Many times opportunities that are given to Black creatives are tokenizing. People want us to exist in a certain way instead of just how we are. So creating that space where outright we can be exactly who we are is really what we were seeking to create. We wanted to equip Black creatives with the skills they need to be able to build themselves up. We wanted to help not only creatives, but other organizations to build equitable, please take that note, peep the detail, equitable relationships and best practices with creatives of color, not just Black creatives, creatives of color. Don't come to me with no tokenizing, oh, we want to feature you just for Black History Month, and then we're never going to do anything with Black History Month again. We're not doing that. Let's talk about exactly what you wanted to do and how we're going to do that. We want to funnel and return resources back to creatives who need it. I think a lot of folks who, again, want to provide opportunities, they think of it more as an investment instead of as a return. And I think when we talk about equity, we really got to be real with something here. The reason why a lot of these professional art spaces exist is because it was stolen from somebody else. And you're looking at two people in which our people were kind of, killed for a lot of these resources and these legacies and these foundations to be created in the first place. So we don't see it as a providing an opportunity. We see it as we're giving you back what you deserve. And these are just some screenshots from over the years of different artist talks and shows that we've had. But we have been able to work with over 30 Black creatives across the state. On the left, it's the names of folks that we worked with last year. And I have a little screenshot of one of our youngest BAM exhibitioners here. He's 8 years old and he's a photographer. And we actually worked with his auntie as well. She's a photography as well. So, BAM is a family event. It's a family activity as well. And to be able to connect family members with each other that, hey, I didn't know that you were taking pictures and I didn't know that you're a photographer, and being able to connect them together and set them up and say, you're both photographers. What do you want to do with that? Which is very beautiful. Like, when has that ever happened? I don't know, but it's been a beautiful existence. And of course, somebody is mowing the lawn as I'm speaking. So hopefully you can still hear me. But it's been a very beautiful existence, and we are looking to figure out what we're going to do this and next year. So BAM is continuing, and we're excited to create more space for Black creatives across Alaska. For artsy nerds like myself, this is one of Ana Mandietta's pieces from her Earth Body works. And this artist really speaks to me. I love her work. And I really identify with, you know, her intention of doing this piece. You know, she's a Cuban American. She immigrated, was kind of forced to immigrate actually to this country, and spent her entire waking life trying to find and create home. And that really hits with me because that's kind of how I felt, of being millions of miles away from my home, not being able to participate in my culture, and recognizing the sacrifice that my parents had to make in order to survive in this country as, you know, legal aliens and then immigrants of color in a country and a world that did not want them to exist. And I knew that it was extremely painful for me to be able to carve out a place in Fairbanks for me to exist as a person, as an organizer, and as a creative. But knowing that there's beauty in that imprint and that I could make, you know, the process a little bit easier. I can show people how to carve a space out for themselves that doesn't have to be so painful, to finally have, you know, an imprint of beauty instead of an imprint of pain is something really, really important to me. So just wanting to share that. That's pretty much all I have and what I do. If you're there in person, you can scan that QR code. That's my website. You can also shoot me an email. If you want to get connected, it's all good. It's Soul for Kin. The Black Alaskan Art Matters page on Facebook will be up soon. So you could just type in BAM, you'll find us. It'll be pretty easy. And if you want to see more work, I've got some another virtual art show coming up next month. So if you want to check it out, it'll be on the website. And that's what I got. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity, and happy to be able to share this work with you.
Thank you, Alyssa. I'm not visible anymore somehow. But that was really wonderful to hear from you both. We're up against lunchtime, so I don't know if anyone has a burning question for the artists. We had some discussion questions planned, but I don't want to further boost our time into lunch. Is everybody? I'm sure Alex and Alyssa would be willing to follow up with anyone if they have questions after the fact over email. So thank you, Alex and Alyssa, so much for being here and for rolling with all of the technical difficulties. Really, really appreciate you sharing your perspectives. It's been an honor to listen to you. And I also love that Ana Mendieta piece. So thanks for bringing that. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.